So welcome everybody. Welcome to the practice today. I have prepared a few things today. So one of them is a bolster. I would like to have a slightly modified ending to the class today. If you don't have a bolster, but you have a couch nearby, or you've got a chair, maybe without armrests, that you could prepare for the last bit of the class, that would be great. I've also, if you're working with the bolster, 2 blocks or piles of books would be good to have. And then I've got my usual blanket lying there by the side. So you grab what you have and can use for the purpose. And then I would ask you, whenever you are ready, to find a comfortable lying on your back position, whatever that looks like. So you could basically use the blanket as a little cushion. If you have a bolster, you might as well use that underneath your knees. And there's various things that you might do to get really cozy and comfortable in your spot. Allowing yourself to lie there on the back just as feels right. There's no particular posture required or positioning other than being comfortable. You could choose to close the eyes. And as you arrive in the space today, we're practicing with a sense of non-grasping, non-hoarding, aparigraha. It is oftentimes that we cling onto things of the material kind, or we hold on to certain beliefs, other happenings in our lives we're holding on to oftentimes as well. So while you might have something coming into your mind right now, be mindful not to hold onto that either. Maybe keeping that sort of in the back of the mind that we oftentimes need to let things flow or go even, but that occurs as well on the mat. So perhaps noticing within your physical body, is there something where you're holding on? Perhaps there's energetically something that you're holding on to. Like sometimes when we're really tight, we're even holding on to our own breath. We stop breathing. And it could be as simple as balancing on your mat, where we kind of hold onto the breath, thinking it will help us. So like everything, when we practice on the mat, everything's directly related into our daily lives. And sometimes it just needs the awareness to create within ourselves. And we're using oftentimes that space on the mat to do so, so that then the concept flows more easily in our lives. I would love to begin the actual practice with a deeper way of breathing. No particular pattern of the breath today. However, if you enjoy a full yogi breath and familiar with it, you could breathe like this in and out of the nostrils, belly, ribs to collarbones. But just a deeper breath for now is also fine. As you notice your body responding to the deeper breathing with some movement perhaps. And once you're feeling a bit more familiar with the way your breath is flowing, I'd ask you to bring in a thought as you breathe in, thinking lightness. And as you breathe out, thinking about let go or non-gripping, non-grasping. So for the inhale, it's lightness. For the out breath, it's that idea of letting go, letting be, non-gripping. Whatever words resonate with you here much better. Lightness on the in-breath and letting go on the out-breath. Just instilling the thought in combination with your deeper breath. And you might, for the next few rounds of breathing, choose, instead of exhaling through the nostrils, to breathe out from the mouth, and perhaps even let that out breath be accompanied by a sigh. The sigh could be soft, it could be a noisy or even a strong sigh. Whatever you feel like, whatever you're trying to release, perhaps on that out breath. The in-breath still flows through the nostrils. The out-breath might now be a sigh and escape the mouth. While you get used to the breath and the sighing, you might also notice how the physical body is responding and how your energy might be changing. Allowing just 2 more breaths. And letting go not only of the sighing, but also of the thought accompanying your breath. And perhaps keeping your breath flowing in that slightly more energetic, deeper way. As you could choose to bend your knees, stepping your feet down onto the ground, letting your arms relax slightly away from your body, and beginning to gently roll the head from side to side, just awakening through the spine. And if the rolling of the head feels good, you can either pause it or start to gently sway the knees as well. And you could choose whether you're rolling to the same side, the opposite side, whatever feels right for you. And if that still feels good, you might like to center the head, lift the feet off the floor, leave the knees hovering in the air, and continue then your slide rocking from side to side, which you could, of course, extend and go further. You might then complete that by giving your knees a loving hug and squeeze them in towards the chest, and maybe even on the out by lifting your nose between your knees. And let your head and shoulders land. Let your body roll to your most comfortable side, and using your hand to rise to a seated position. Now, I've got a particular seat in mind today for the reason of movement. However, if that seat isn't yours, it is sitting towards the heels. But as you might have a bolster, you could cradle the bolster between your legs, or you might even grab one or both blocks, place them between the feet and sit like that. However, again, if this is uncomfortable and you brought a chair in without armrests, that could be another way of sitting upright and tall while there's room around you and the hips are aligned. So for our non-grasping, we're using a mudra. So placing your right hand thumb, and I'm currently not mirroring that, the right hand thumb to face down to the floor with the palm of the hand showing forward. Then hook your left hand in as you hook all your fingers up, the thumbs now resting towards the little fingers, taking that grasp quite close towards you. I will once demonstrate that a little bit closer to the camera so you can see. It's the right hand in front of you, the thumb pointing down, and the left hand just hooks around, and then the thumbs are trying to hold towards the little fingers. Now, once you've got that little grip, it is called Ganesha Mudra, so leaning in with our elephant god. Just drawing the hands a bit apart, leaving your shoulders soft, the elbows soft, and trying to pull on the opposite side. So you're feeling a sense of strength as well as holding on, a grasping element here. So leaving your spine nice and tall, take a breath in. And as you breathe out, pulling with the right hand and allowing your body to turn while your hips are solid. Breathing in to gently center the body, and then pulling on the left hand as you breathe out to turn to the other side. So an inhale to center. Right hand pulls a bit more on the out breath towards a twist. Inhaling, come back to center, and exhaling, pulling on the other side. Let's repeat that twice more to each side, just following the length of your own breath. Trying to remain quite gentle in the shoulders, but using the grip of the hands to pull you towards a twist. Once you complete it, please find steadiness in the center. If you're able to holding the mudra still, you can rest that gently against your belly. You might close the eyes or lower your gaze. You might think about or feel more down towards your foundation, the way you're sitting. Instilling here a sense of solid and supported. A sense of groundedness. Notice if any color comes to your mind. Perhaps you can visualize red, if that sits right with you, but perhaps multiple shades of red. You could think about a carpet, a mosaic, maybe the pattern of your favorite shawl, if that's in red. Visualizing the color, and perhaps even taking that color with you towards your practice. As you might gently release the grip of the hands, turn the palms up and rest the backs of the hands down towards your lap. Perhaps keeping your beautiful red pattern with the different shades of the color in your mind. As you take a breath in Then turn the palms of the hands downward, and on the breath out, beginning to lean forward. Starting to extend the arms forward. Now, if you use any support underneath you, you might like to remove that. Sinking in towards your heels, and perhaps your arms are quite actively extended forward. There might be a little loosening up from the holding on, a little wiggle through the pelvis, some movement through the shoulders, your arms, or even the head and the neck. As your arms are extended now, take a breath in and rise up onto your hands and knees. Tucking the right toes under and sliding the leg out long on the mat. While you push the hands forward, drawing back towards the heel of the foot. Then lifting back up the weight towards your hands. You might keep your toes tucked under and become stronger now in the upper body, tailbone starting to draw towards the heels. And only as an extra option, could you lift your left knee as well, holding in a plank. Then landing both knees back down onto the ground. Untuck the toes, and as you breathe out, reaching with a rounded spine, the buttocks back towards the heels as you drop towards a child's pose, Balasana. On the inhale, roll the spine back up, reclaiming your all-four stance. Tucking the left toes under and sliding the leg out long on the mat. As you find strength here in the leg, the upper body. On the out breath, push the hands forward on the mat, and with that leaning back into the heel of the left foot. As you might shift the weight lightly forward back to the hands, away from the leg, either holding here with strength and tail drawing towards the heels, or you could tuck the right toes under again and find your plank position. Now placing the knees back down and widening them. You might touch your big toes together, and on the exhale again, please round your spine as you reach your bottom down towards the heels. Support here is welcome. You could use your bolster to lean towards, or placing some cushioning between the legs. Wiggle yourself into a quite comfortable position with legs wide. Head doesn't have to rest here, but could. Coming back to deeper breathing if they'd gotten lost somewhere. And then extending the arms forward more actively as you rise up onto the fingertips. Try and extend your spine forward at the same time. Then walk the hands across towards the right and surrendering over the right leg as you breathe out. You might want to deepen the extension in the left side of the body by placing the left hand on top of the right. Your head could be resting on your arms. While you continue your deeper breathing, creating a bit of space there in your left-hand side. Now stay grounded in the right hand and a strong right arm. And as you breathe in, lifting your left arm or drawing that into the side of the waist to turn the shoulder open and your gaze. As you breathe out, releasing your left arm forward, joining in with the right, come to your fingertips and sink a little bit into the wide-legged child's pose with your spine long and the gaze downward. Then walk the hands across to the left, perhaps surrendering over the left leg. And the right hand might touch upon the left as you sink in. Find a comfortable place for your head to rest. The next few breaths, breathing along the right side of the body, aiming to find some space. Then becoming firm again into the left hand and extending a strong left arm. The head and the chest might lightly be lifted. And here's your option to lift the right arm as you breathe in. Place that into the side or rolling the shoulder back as you might open your gaze. Releasing your right hand back onto the mat. Do the same with the left. And as you take a breath in, lift the hips away from the heels again. Draw your knees back down to about hip distance. Plant the hands down just slightly forward from underneath your shoulders. As you now stand here, an in-breath to lift the right arm again as you open your gaze. And with the out-breath, rounding the arms through as you aim for a thread the needle position. Now, if the head is a bit too far away from the floor, you could actually use a block. And if your shoulder is achy on that side, the block might be very useful as well. It could be any height of a setting that is required. Your left hand, you might press the fingertips into the floor like a little cup, and with that lifting your left shoulder. The gaze slightly along the floor and over to the left. And let the left hand spread back out onto the mat and use the weight into the hand. As you take a breath in, the right arm might lift again as you open your gaze. And on the out breath, landing the hand back down, finding your place on all fours. Then changing sides. On the inhale, the left arm might lift as you could open your gaze. And with the out breath, rounding the arm and reaching underneath. The same applies here. If the head doesn't quite like the floor or your shoulder needs some gentleness, use a block to rest the head upon. As you reach across to the side, you might come up onto the right hand fingertips like a cup. Press them into the floor and let your shoulder lift a bit more. But the gaze stays along the floor here. Breathing slowly, breathing deeply. Then spreading the hand back out onto the ground. And as you breathe in, use the hand, lifting the left arm again as you turn, and the out breath to bring the hand back down towards the floor or your mat. Maybe you enjoy the posture here on your knees, then tuck the toes under, extend your arms forward and lift your hips up and back. That's your puppy pose. Or you might lift the knees off the floor and come towards a downward facing dog, your choice. If you have chosen a downward facing dog, you might enjoy moving through the legs, pedaling out through the feet, extending perhaps the opposite leg or heel down towards the ground. And then let us all walk the feet towards the short front edge of the mat, landing there in a standing forward bend. Allowing the outer edges of your feet here to be parallel. A block is always welcome here. The weight sits lightly forward in towards the toes. The head is hanging loose. You might look down between your knees. Uttanasana or standing forward fold. Your shoulders might slightly draw up into the shoulder socket, with that creating a bit of space around your neck. Notice your breathing and come back to deeper breathing if that gotten lost in the transition. For your next breath, you can keep your fingertips on the floor or place them against your shins or a block, straightening the spine forward as you come towards a half lift. Using the pressure into the legs might help you to extend the spine here as you breathe in again. And with the out breath, soften the knees and return to a softer version of your forward fold. Hold it while you breathe in, and then start to uncurl the spine into standing as you're breathing out. Give the shoulders a lift as you breathe in and shrug them down as you're breathing out. The arms might open towards the sides here. And for the inhale, then lifting both arms up if that suits. You might interlace the fingers over the head, pointing your index fingers up together, Charlie's Angels Mudra. As we stand tall in the feet, draw the inner heels lightly toward each other and stretch up, but your gaze is forward. On the elbows now, bending lightly to the right to begin. On the inhale, draw yourself to center. On the exhale, bending to the left. Let's keep that palm tree swaying for another couple of rounds. Just moving side to side. And once you've completed your sides, returning to the center and leaning back towards the right. So you might like to hold here while I lower my arms. Keep yours up, please. And let the top shoulder come back. As you neatly square it off towards the front, there's also the option of bringing the hip out in the other direction, leaning a bit more towards the left. Let's soften the knees here. Roll that in, then push to your feet and lift the arms back up. And on your elbows, then bending over to the other side. The same here, I will release my arm. You could hold right here. Keeping the top shoulder back, no matter your choices. And perhaps bringing the hip out towards the other side. Leaning a bit deeper into the banana here. Side bend. One more breath in. And then rolling the shoulder forward as you release. Curling back up to a stand. Lifting the shoulders up and letting them shrug down gently. Turning the palms back towards the front side of the mat. Now for my next shape, I will bring my feet together. Feel free to keep them at hip distance. On the breath in, lifting the arms back up. And as you breathe out, draw the hands down to the heart while bending your knees and bending your hips. So coming into a chair pose or Utkarasana. While the feet and the knees might squeeze together here, leaving your sitting bones open and feeling how the lower belly kind of lifts a little bit in and upward. Your option is to keep the hands right here or to extend the arms forward. You could even lift your arms around your ears, or you could lift the arms forward and maybe turn the palms upward. Let's have a play today with your arm positioning. And once you've found yours, try to hold. Think about that little sip up from the lower belly while the sitting bones remain open. And feeling into particularly your shoulder area, upper back, as well as your neck. Have you chosen the right position here for yourself? Let's take a breath in. As you bring the hands back down to your heart, stepping your right foot far down the mat and lowering the right heel to the floor, taking a bend into the left knee here as you sink that little bit lower, finding your stance in the warrior two. So my back heel is a tad bit further out, so the hip rolls lightly inwards. The front knee here is aligning over the ankle joint, as well as with the toes in front of you. As you breathe in, let your arms open out to shoulder height, But today, let the palms face upward. We're modifying the warrior pose as you might look forward towards the front hand's palm. Keeping the shoulders easy, but pulling your feet lightly inwards. So you're feeling quite strong in your stance and supported this way. With the palm at the front and the back facing upwards, thinking about what you can offer that you no longer need, that might serve the universe, humankind, nature. Letting go of that doesn't serve you, but sharing with others. With your next breath in, straighten the front leg, lifting both arms. Then bend the front knee again as you circle your arms behind and interlace the fingers here. Drawing the arms down or away from your back as you begin to lift your sternum, heart, maybe the chin, maybe the throat and the gaze are opening. Take a deep breath. Then inhaling here again, and with the elbow starting to lean down towards the inside of the front knee. My arms might rest on the back, so could yours. Or you might lift the arms away from the back. Perhaps you can let go of the head. As you let go of your upper body, see that the front knee stays where it was, aligned over the ankle and with your toes. There's also a sense that the weight is kind of all leaning forward. So anchor yourself into the back foot by grounding through its outer edge. Humble warrior pose. Now let your hands release down to frame the front foot. Lift your back heel and find a runner's lunge. Then let the back knee land onto the mat. You might untuck the back toes and then lifting the leg from the front right behind as you take a breath in, lengthening out from the top of the head to your toes. As you bend the knee, let the knee open out towards the side. If you feel you want to do that a little bit more, you can tuck the right toes under, lift that into an open down dog. If you like to stay here or even not, tapping the ball of the foot and the toes to the ground. And if that feels good, you might lift your left arm. If you came here from a down dog, that arm might reach forward to flick the dog. Feeling a bit into the openness of the hip here. Take a breath in. And on the out breath, releasing the hand back down, lifting the leg and lowering the knee to the floor. As you exhale around the spine, sitting back towards the heels, extended child's pose. For the inhale, rise up onto the hands and the knees. You may tuck your toes under there and breathe out to return to your down dog. Don't hold the down dog much, walking the feet gradually forward between the hands. As you land with your feet parallel or your feet touching, take an inhale, fingertips supporting against floor, block or shins, halfway lift. On the out breath, soften the knees to fold down. Now bend your knees and lift the arms forward as you breathe in, hands to heart as you get comfortable or strong rather in your chair pose. So we're landing back into the chair and you might have established your arm position earlier. Please take the arms back to where they were most comfortable for you, or rather most supportive of upper back. The strength here coming back up from a zip of the lower tummy muscles. The tailbone is, or the sitting bones are open. Finding a slightly deeper seat if that suits. as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, bring the hands to touch, stepping your left foot far down the mat. As you land the whole foot down, the heel points out a bit towards the back end of the mat. Bring a bend into the right knee and let the knee align over the ankle as well as with your toes. So your stance is complete, pulling the feet inwards to find more strength and stability. Then let your arms open, and again, please have the palms facing up today. You can modify any arm that needs a bit of support or shoulder like mine, keeping the shoulders at ease and the palm of the hands facing upward. And you might look towards the front hand palm, reminding yourself of what it is that you would like to let go of, that maybe is serving others or nature. Feeling your strength, the ease in your shoulders, and keeping your focus, drishti as well as mind. With the next inhale, then straighten the legs, lift your arms up, maybe the gaze. As you breathe out, return the front knee to a bend. Your arms come behind the back, and you might change the fingers on top as you interlace, drawing the arms down or away from the back, beginning to lift the heart space. Maybe the chin, the throat is opening, the gaze is opening. And as you stay here, a deep breath. As you inhale again, and with the exhale, beginning to lean towards the inside of the front knee. Arms may rest or lift away from the back. Perhaps there's a chance to let go of the heaviness of the head, relaxing the neck. And as is the nature here as well on this side, the weight kind of sits all the way forward, ground actively through the outer edge of the foot to support you. Humble warrior. When we let go, we need a certain amount of strength to actually be able to do so. That strength is reflected here in the stronger posture, but might also be represented in a stronger mind in your life's practice. As you release the hands, starting to frame the front foot again, lifting the heel of the foot and finding your runner's lunge as you take a breath. Then drop the back knee down towards the ground, untuck the back toes, and then sweeping the foot from the front towards the back. You might bend the knee then and open your knee and your hip to the side, and this is a plenty. However, if you prefer to do that from a down dog, tuck the left toes back under, lift that knee as well. And only optional, whether that's from a down dog or forwards, would you tap your right toes and ball of the foot down behind. From there, you might breathe in and lift your right arm. And perhaps if you're flicking the dog, reaching that arm forward and lifting your hips a bit more. Let's release the hand back down. Bring the leg back up. Land the knee to the mat. Take an outburst as you round the spine, sitting back towards your heels. Then lower the forearms to the floor and kind of slither along the mat, coming to lie down on your front. The hands might come underneath the shoulders, the tops of the feet into the floor, and with that your knees might be rising. Keep your elbows nice and close and take a breath in to lift the head and the chest. Actively draw the shoulder blades down your spine, keeping elbows snug and shoulders low. The gaze might lightly be in front. Just feel into the neck. It's a quite effortless position of the neck. Notice what would happen if you lifted your gaze. There's strain coming to the back of the neck. And what happened if you were to lower the head, perhaps noticing how that affects the whole spine. See if you can hold here for 1 or 2 more breaths. And when you feel ready, an exhale to surrender the forehead and the knees to the floor. An inhale to come back to hands and knees. And an out breath as you roll the spine back. Extended child's pose. Taking a couple of deeper breaths where you might choose to move lightly. Keeping a spread out of the fingers towards the front side of the mat. As you take a breath in, come up onto your hands and knees. Now, I really have a very strong posture here for you. If you find this is too strong, you can do my version of it. My version here is to place the block high and tuck the toes under, and then kind of come to sit on the higher block, but stepping the feet out in front. Now I will turn myself around because it's much nicer for you to see me from that side. As you might sit upon a block or come into a crouching position, come to lift up through the spine again, bringing your feet quite close, your knee quite close. Lifting all the way up through the spine and returning to Ganesha Mudra. As you point the right thumb down, the palm is looking forward, and then interlacing or hooking up the fingers rather. Let the shoulders soften and find a little bit of a pull here. As you keep your pull, we're also trying to balance in our crouching position. And it's still a balance if you're kind of sitting towards a block. Keeping that little pull, I would suggest to keep the eye gaze low but steady. As you breathe out now, pull again on the right-hand side for a twist. If this feels good, place your left elbow down, keep the pull and the right elbow is pulling up. And you might look over towards that right elbow. Notice how it feels to have such a strong grip. Lowering the elbow, lifting the other and centering yourself. Maintain a gentle pull on both of your hands. And then a stronger one on the left as you're breathing out. The right elbow might land as you keep pulling up through the left hand. Maybe that elbow is lifting and you could look over the left elbow or shoulder here, maintaining that pull with the left hand. As you breathe in, coming back to the center, maintain the pull again and aim to relax your shoulders. Perhaps you can dare to close the eyes or lower your gaze again. Then release all that you're holding on to as you relax your arms. Let them come down by the side. Even if there's a thud of the block coming down towards a seated position, I have now completely removed the block. And I will instead use quite a folded blanket and place that underneath my hips. Much more comfortable seat on the blanket. Both legs out in front, but I suggest to bend the knees and then also flex the feet. Placing your fingertips down on either side of you as you bring them into the mat. Shrug the shoulders down and find a tall seated position. Eyes can close here if that's comfortable for you. Take an inhale. And with the exhale, either leaning forward from the hips or swaying as you walk your hands forward, exploring Paschimottanasana, a seated forward fold. Maybe your hands are still resting on either side of the legs, as you could choose to soften your whole upper body over the legs, even lowering the gaze, as you might lower the palms of the hands, and perhaps sliding the heels a bit further forward, but very mindful here of how that all feels in your back. Keep the shoulders gently shrugging back, your toes turned upwards. Taking a deep, full breath in and out. And letting it go on the out breath as you aim to lean more and more towards your legs. And this could be an inner experience of the energies moving forward, or it could actually be your breath taking you there. As you next inhale, feel the torso lifting a little, extending through the spine again, then walking or sliding the hands back, bringing them all the way back behind while you might fully extend the legs. Bring them to touch and point your toes. You might have the fingertips of your hands pointing forward, or you could stand up here on your fists. As you slightly lean towards the hands or the fists in a more comfortable leaning back position, you could begin to squeeze the shoulder blades and lift your heart again. The gaze here is perfectly fine looking forward, but it might also feel good to protract the chin and guide the head back if your neck is okay with that. While you might choose to hold right here perfectly fine, or squeeze your bottom up into the air for an upward facing plank position. Again, these are just choices, yours to do. Let's all point the toes actively towards the front of the mat or towards the floor. Taking another deep breath. And then ever so gently landing as you start to round the spine. The head might be easier to lift and come back into your seated pose. I will now wiggle away from my blanket, place that back to where later my head will be resting, but keeping the hands then behind and stepping the feet down onto the ground. I will give you lots of options here. You might stay right here, leaning back to the space between the sitting bones. You might place your hands behind your thighs and elevate the spine this way. Or you might lift the feet off the floor and actually sit between the sitting bones. And some of you might prefer a grip, a pistol grip of your big toes, and perhaps extending the legs in this boat variation. Whether they're fully extended or not is not so important, but maybe enjoying the grip on the feet or the big toes. Finding Navasana, your boat pose. One more breath. Then soften your knees. Release the feet down. You can start by putting your socks back on as we enter into a relaxation practice. But I will actually bring the blanket to the other side. And I will show you the setup that you might like to practice if you have a bolster. Taking the 2 blocks or 2 piles of books, and if it's a block, choosing the highest setting. Then taking your bolster and balancing the bolster on top of these blocks. So please make sure that the bolster is actually balanced so that you've got a chance of putting some weight onto it. To come into a Stonehenge position, you might sit with the side of the hip similar to legs up the wall pose. Now, if you're using a chair or the couch by your side, do the same, sitting here on the side, the hip facing. Then slowly roll onto your back. And if you place your legs onto the bolster roughly where your blocks are, this should hold. It might fall a couple of times. Please try to find some kind of balance there. If you have a blanket here, you might even tuck the lower end of the blanket in to support your neck, and then relaxing your arms away to the sides of your body. If you've got a spare blanket to cover you to feel warmer or more cozy, please feel free to do that. Let your body now come to settle into the shape. You might even choose to close your eyes. However, sometimes the mind's holding on to thoughts. If that is you, please try and find a steady gazing point, perhaps instead. That gazing point might lead you into a sense of inner stillness. It takes perhaps a few breaths to get to that point of inner stillness. Having your arms resting here on either side of the body, the arms a little bit away from the body so your shoulders are easy. Focus on the upward facing palms on either side of your body. Imagine that in each hand you're holding beautiful red flowers. These flowers are very delicate. You might like to see the different shades of red within these delicate flowers you're holding in the palms of your hands. And you might like to explore the idea that each of these flowers is one of your material possessions or one of your relationships, maybe a past experience. All of these being kind of possessions from the material world, whether that's a relationship, an experience, or an actual material good. Still seeing those things within the flowers. Material possessions, the tighter we hold on, the more we are weighed down. The more we become attached to something, the more we start worrying about losing it. Keep holding on to your flowers gently. If we hold on too tightly to our relationships, they may wilt or slip away. When holding too tightly to the past, we don't realize the possibilities that are in the present. So as we visualize the beautiful, delicate flowers and compare them to our possessions, our relationships, and our personal history, we learn that they are to be treated with gentleness and kindness. And sometimes it is necessary to let them go. Aparigraha means non-grasping and refers to absence of attachment and greed. Aparigraha teaches us to take only what we need, keep only what serves us in the moment, and to let go when the time is right. You might sit with for a little bit longer with that image of the flowers, so delicate in the palms of your hands. Perhaps this affirmation sits right with you. Cling not to outcomes. Life will unfold as it will. As you choose how you mentally let go of your delicate flowers in the hands. Then begin to sense your toes and wiggle them lightly. You might choose to carefully move into your ankles and let these movements ripple up to your heart. You might allow your arms to reach underneath your head. Lift your legs and roll over onto your side. And however you might get to the side, you might just roll there, even if you didn't take the last suggestions. Allowing a couple more breaths just on your side. Then perhaps joining me in this seated pose. Holding the palms of your hands open within your lap. As you might once more explore the delicate flowers that you were holding, the ones that you let go of. And taking another grip of Ganesha Mudra, right palm forward, left hand hooking in as you pull lightly. Acknowledging that sometimes we hold on. Before you release the grip and join the palms of the hands in Anjali Mudra. As from our hearts, we bow and extend toward each other. Namaste.